I can't tell you how many times I've heard, you know, that goes through this house all the time.
Hi everyone, it's Jaden. Welcome back to my channel where I share information on health, fitness, and just overall self-improvement and optimization. Today I have another health crash recovery video, and my guest today, his name is Wayo. He is, remind me again, how old are you? I forgot.
I'm 35.
35, okay, so he's 35. He's a fellow actor and performer. I think he used to be based in LA as well, but I think he's based out of Texas right now, and he is here to share his health crash and his whole story, symptoms, and everything in between with you guys, with me. Before we get into it, I just want to do my disclaimer as always. Neither one of us are doctors or medical professionals. If you are experiencing, health issues, you want to advise your health professional before taking on any type of advice over the internet, especially over YouTube on something like this. But we're just here to share our experience and what we went through with you guys so that you guys can have that for your own research. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll just jump right into, your health crash and everything.
Yeah, I'm 35 years old. I have been married for 3 years to a beautiful wife.
Nice.
And I have 2 wonderful children, a 2-year-old boy and an 8-month-old girl. So there's a lot of responsibility there. I am Roman Catholic, which is a huge part of my life. So part of the reason why I say that is it guides the way I think about a lot of things, but it also is why we have so many children so fast. It's part of our religious belief. And so, and that's to me, it's an important part of the story is my children and stuff like that. So awesome. Basically I'm in Houston, Texas. I was acting in Los Angeles. We moved here just after we got married, almost 3 years ago. I'm from Houston originally, and I'm a real estate broker here. I've been doing real estate brokerage actually since I was 19. So I was doing that in Los Angeles as well. That factors into this story a lot as well because of the type of job that it is. Other than that, I'm very active like you. I have a background in gymnastics, not to the same level that you did, but I was teaching parkour and free running and gymnastics when I was in LA, and I love lifting weights. I was deadlifting. Were
you at Tempest Academy?
I was a coach at Tempest Academy.
Yeah, so I have like 2 friends that used to coach. Well, one guy actually, he did a film with me. It was he's famous. He's on American Ninja Warrior. I forgot his name now. Brett Stephenson. He was a friend of mine. Oh,
I didn't know Brett.
Oh, okay, yeah. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So Tempest, and that's a very highly active thing, jumping off those. A lot of adrenaline rushes. I do, suffer from anxiety, degrees of OCD as well, and specifically hypochondria or health anxiety. So that's in my background as well. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's pertinent. I love wiener dogs.
Okay.
That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So how would you say, like, your crash, what led you into it, and what was happening at the time?
Hindsight's 20/20, and when you look back, you can actually, for me, I can see that I actually had many crashes through my life.
Mm-hmm.
The way my therapist puts it, she's like, you've been in adrenal fatigue since you were 5. Like, it's maybe an exaggeration, but the way I look at adrenal fatigue is there's the condition and then there's the actual crash. And so I had a smaller crash. For example, the last one I had was 13 months before this one. But yeah, basically, when I was living in LA, I had a friend who was kind of a naturopath. She's a registered nurse, and she's a nutritionist, and has 6 kids. So she, Catholic, a big family. And so she had experienced a lot of adrenal fatigue herself, and she was the one that told me when I lived out there. She was like, I think you have this, and I kind of put it in the back of my head, and then later on researched it at points. So And that'll come into play in a second because it was really important that somebody had said that to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why your channel is so important, is that it's really confusing at first, but from what everybody tells me, but for me, not so much. It's like the second it happened, I knew. So it was August 14th, so it wasn't that long ago, about 2.5 months ago. And I was, leading up to that, I was having lots of hypochondria, just left and right. I was dealing with a lot of clients at the time. We're having a housing boom, selling more houses than I've ever sold in my life. That's amazing, but I wasn't balancing my life at all. I was getting very, I was getting agitated. I was on like the phone a lot. I was overstimulated, and I was starting to kind of ignore my kids even, you know, I mean, like I was there, but I wasn't there. My wife was starting to raise some red flags. And then on that morning I woke up and I just couldn't stop having hypochondria, and I thought I was dying. And I tried to shove it down. I even went, and it's so funny because you tell your story and you're like, oh, I went to the Avengers movie, and I went shooting. Okay. I literally went and shot guns while having my crash. So my heart's doing this in my chest, and I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing, and I'm training with pistols, and like my wife and I do some serious training with that, and she was also an actress, and I actually met her at Tempest, so she likes to do all the stunts and stuff too, and it just wouldn't stop. And when we got home, she looked at me and she said, I think you're burning out. I think you're crashing. And I cried, and I said, you're right. And I immediately started taking steps to do something about it. And I think that's the big thing, is knowledge is power in this thing, as I think we'll probably discover the more we talk and stuff like that. But I would say that out of like scale of 1 to 10, because I've heard of people that literally can't walk to the bathroom themselves, and have to be, you know, under the care of endocrinologists because it goes so far. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think my crash was maybe like a 4, which is also a lucky thing too. Because it was, I would say, on the lighter end in a sense. I mean, it was still miserable. I had the whole thing. You lay down, you close your eyes, and then your heart just starts pounding. And you wake up, the whole thing, like every 3 to 10 minutes, just kind of waking up all throughout the night. And, but yeah, so that's really the day that it happened. It was just like that one day, bam, everything came flooding in.
Okay. And what symptoms would you remember from, like, during the crash? Like, what were you just mentioned heart palpitations, but other like ones that you really remember and that were severe? The
heart palpitations was the biggest thing at first, because I was like, it felt like my body was completely out of control. So heart palpitations were the biggest and first thing. Next thing I noticed was I was out of breath very easily. I live in a 3-story townhome, and I would, you know, go down to the 2nd floor because our bedrooms are on the 3rd floor. 2nd floor is the kitchen and living area. And if I went back up those stairs, I had to sit, you know, it was really crazy, and considering that I was in good shape and stuff like that. Well, it's another thing I want to add is that a lot of people lose a lot of weight on this. And one of the things leading up to it is that I think I told you, gaining a lot of sticky weight, and there was nothing I could do about it. And so that like my body wouldn't, a lot of people have the opposite, but my body would not drop weight no matter what. So the other thing that went was my appetite. And that's the other crazy thing is I didn't eat really for days, and I still didn't drop an ounce.
Yeah. So it's very, you know, from everyone I've talked to, and like it's very much, it mirrors, like, you know, what stress does to people. Like with stress, people either don't eat and gain weight, or they eat but they still lose weight.
Right.
It's just like an extreme form of that. It's like you either just keep losing weight, or you're just gaining weight and you can't lose the weight. Like no matter what you do, you eat perfect and you try to exercise, just, you know, the weight doesn't come off. Yeah.
Well, and that was the crazy thing too, is in the beginning, because I couldn't really eat. My wife tried to entice me with things that I like. So she went and got some Texas barbecue, for example, and I ate 1 piece of brisket. And because, you know, when you're in fight or flight, and I'm not a doctor or therapist, but when you know, all your blood vessels dilate and take all the blood away from your internal organs, your stomach can't digest very well. And that also that passivity in there, if you didn't already have gut problems, which if you're like people that tend to get this problem, you know, of the type A personality, you're going to probably have gut problems too, but it makes that even worse. So I ate this piece of brisket and it was like, it wouldn't leave my stomach for like 8 hours. It just stayed there. So I have a little bit of a background in personal training and nutrition and stuff like that. So I was like, look, I know I'm supposed to eat pretty clean on this, but I told my wife, I was like, I'm not eating anything and it's making my blood sugar problems worse. So that was the other thing, was blood sugar drops. And so I said, make me some pancakes. And for the first week, all I could eat was, and I'm not advising anybody to do this, but it was all I could eat. And she made them as healthy as she could. You know, she does the whole paleo. I only use coconut sugar. I'm like, whatever, it's the only thing I can eat. And then, but then I started putting butter on them. I started transitioning more to fats to see if my body could start doing. So other symptoms for me were a lot of anxiety. Again, the hypochondria kind of through the roof. I thought everything was going to kill me in that time.
Now, did you notice how, you know, I was mentioning it in a couple of videos ago, or like maybe last video, but the mindset you were in, just like everything felt super severe to you. Like it was like everything felt life or death kind of,
Yes, and I also felt like I was really defensive. And it was really kind of a good thing because, you know, this is a disease of circumstance, right? It's not something you're born with. It's something you catch from somebody. It's
like a lifestyle thing.
And that's one of the most important things, if I could say to anybody, is really check in with that, right? And that's a lot of what your videos help me with. But yeah, it was like, I remember like if somebody said something that was out of line, I was super sensitive to it. And again, it was kind of a good thing because in that time, I actually got rid of some people that were not serving my life, and not in a rude way, but I just had to, and some people just some distance and some things like that. I started becoming very protective. But again, it was really nice because I knew what it was from the beginning. So I could start getting to work on protecting myself. And that helped that extreme feelings about everything come down because I had a focal point. And I found your channel very early on because I felt that all the channels that I found that talked about adrenal fatigue said the same things. It was all good. Thought this, that. Oh, sorry, my screen just did something weird. But nobody was really talking about the experience, and nobody, I felt, when I did find people talking about the experience, it was all women. It really was, and that's cool and all, but men are different than women, and I wanted to hear a male perspective on it, a male voice, and I don't know, I'm not trying to be sexist or anything like that, but I just wanted to hear that. And so being able to kind of grab on to, and then your videos actually were so much more than that for me. It turned out had nothing to do with being a man or a woman. It was what you walked through, which was about how much this is about mentality. It gave me something to grab onto and to focus on, and to create that little bit of structure that I could to hold on to while still being relaxed about it. Like you can't muzzle this thing. As much as it relies on some structure, as soon as you try to muzzle it, you're going to have a setback. You're going to lose your mind.
I'm so glad, you know, you figure all this stuff out, you know, on your journey, because that's like so important. Like all this detailed emotional, psychological stuff, it really helps a lot because a big part of it is that, you know, I think for my own recovery was like, I had to work on myself. And this whole thing, the whole silver lining, it's almost like a catalyst for you to fix your life because you haven't fixed it in so long. And it's gotten to the point where your body and your mind has to shout at you this loud that you better make a change or it's not going to work. You know, I mean, who knows what would happen if you didn't have your crash and you just kept doing the same thing you were doing? You would have like exploded, or I mean, I don't know, you know?
I feel like I prayed for this, interestingly enough, because I spent about a year asking God, and that's, again, you know, different religious beliefs, higher powers. For me, I was asking God, I was like, I know I have these issues and these things that are incomplete that I don't fully understand. And I was like, take them from me. And the joke I make is his answer was okay, you know,
Yeah.
and it forced me to stop and really analyze everything. And one thing I'll say is don't overanalyze. Find things that you enjoy. I rediscovered my love for music and I started playing the guitar again. Get your mind off it, but at the same time, take this opportunity. I was in very intense therapy the entire time because things were coming up. And that's another thing that, like I said, I was looking for a male perspective, but then I found this channel that this applies to everybody. And what you did was you dove in again to mindset, working on yourself. And as you put it in one video, and I loved it, I'm sure you've actually said it in multiple videos, but getting to the root. You're just going to do this again and again and again if you don't get to the root. And I've known people that have done it again and again and again. And I know a guy that's 3 years into it, and you know, and you know, he was older when it happened. There's so many different variables, but yeah, it's really. If I could give one piece of advice, it would be. Can I say shit? Figure your shit out. Figure your shit out. It's a lifelong process. You know, I'm not saying, oh, I've figured it out, but my recovery started speeding up the more I started finding the things that caused it, things in me, the projections I had, and the roots of those things, and started managing them and letting them go. And I develop a support system too for that. I mean, I had my wife who is incredibly intelligent and wonderful and took care of everything. I have several good friends too that I could talk to, again, therapists, things like that. So yeah, again, I mean, I'm not trying to toot your horn, but this channel was such a part of everything for me. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, you know, that goes through this house all the time. Every time I had a setback, and this, again, my advice, work on everything, but the other thing would be find these things that you can hold on to. Every time I had a setback, I watched your video on setbacks. And I watched your video on the phase that I was pretty sure I was on, and the phase that was coming next after that. So I could recalibrate and go, no, this is what's happening. This is where I am, and it's okay.
I really appreciate you. I mean, it's very heartfelt to me because, you know, it's nice to hear that what I'm sharing, it's helping people in the way that I have wanted it to. And back to that point you brought up about the male perspective, it was a kind of a hard decision for me to want to go on this big public YouTube thing and share such a again, I'm not trying to be sexist either, but like a very not typical male expression. You know, because I'm not gonna, even if my channel blows up or whatever, I'm not gonna get recognized as like, oh, he's the fitness guy. No, it's like, oh no, that's a guy who was like really open about all his OCDs and all his, you know. But I just realized, I mean, part of the problem is that, you know, I had to let that go because that's something I just put on myself. No matter like how much of the society is still stuck in that, but it's like, it doesn't mean you have an issue just because you have challenges, you know. It doesn't mean you're like fucked up just because you have these special challenges. Like, I'm sure a lot of people that a lot of people admire have like secrets of like OCD or things that they're dealing with, they're just not sharing particularly. And, you know, it doesn't change how awesome they are in the other ways, you know?
Oh yeah, and for me, I'll tell you, the 5 minutes before this started, I started getting some anxiety, and I don't mean like disordered anxiety, just normal, because I've never been so public about things I struggle with. But you showed me how good that is, and if it can benefit somebody, I wanted to, and to go on that typical, you know, like kind of what the American, I think it's a really Americanized version of what is supposed to be. And I come from a very traditional background, again, being Roman Catholic. And you know, like you would think that I would think that men aren't supposed to talk about their feelings and do these things. And I really feel the opposite to be true. And although I believe that, I've never really had an opportunity to put my money where my mouth is on that. Mm-hmm. And leading up to this, I was like, you know, you could just cancel this. Yeah, but I should put my money where my mouth is on this. You know, my parents might see this, my friends might see this.
But I think, you know, I think the good thing is, you know, whatever religion it is, I think you are understanding the true essence of your religion, because
Correct.
I believe that most religions are the same. The true essence is this, you know, unconditional loving type of
Right.
mindset. And I
Right.
think, you know, whatever religion we want to pick, I mean, that's like the ultimate thing, is to get to that essence of it, you know. And I think
this whole crash helped me get deeper into that understanding, because a lot of what I was doing, and if I could talk a little bit about how I think I got here, a lot of what I was doing internally is I would tell you, hey, it's okay for you to have feelings. Don't you be ashamed to have feelings. Oh, you know, it's normal for you to have this struggle, but for me, no, pressure. So internally, I was telling myself something different than I really believe for everybody else. I believe God loves everybody unconditionally, but not me. And so, I mean, I would never have said that verbally. I didn't even know that consciously. It took this for me to go, wow, I'm really mean to myself. And to realize that I wasn't putting my money where my mouth was. I wasn't living it for me. And you're right, it's that essence of everything that, and it caused a major shift for me. And the interesting thing is, I'm sure you've experienced this in your life. I mean, this channel has drawn hundreds of people to you, but maybe people from your own life even. As I've been going through this, I've had people come to me and be like, you know, I've been struggling with this for years, this thing over here for years. Maybe it's not even related to this. And it's because they've seen me be open, they feel okay to be open. And I'm talking, you know, dudes.
Yeah.
Again, it's what I would call toxic masculinity, is the belief that men can't talk about these things. Absolutely we can, we should, and we should model those. I have a son. We should model those things for our children. For my son, I want him to know. In fact, that was one of the hard things for me, is I want him to see me as very strong, you know. And my wife was like, no, this is really good for him. He needs to see that when you're having a problem, that you know how to address it, and you know how to verbalize it. And
yeah, because then he's gonna really see the true strength. Because I mean, it's easy to be strong in a facade, but it's not easy to actually be vulnerable and then be strong because you're vulnerable, you know. So I think you're totally like on an awesome path with that. There was something I thought of that was actually, I was thinking when you're talking, like, how happy I am for you, because what you're doing is you're taking this health crash, which is like, could be a disaster, how you interpret it, but you're deliberately seeing what the true meaning is for you, and things are getting better, right? Because we've exchanged texts and stuff, and I think because you've switched your mindset and you're like working on yourself, I know that you said things are getting a lot better for you. If you want to share the progress with that.
Yeah, so it's actually a little weird how fast it's progressing. And again, I attribute that to how blessed and lucky I was to have you, that friend of mine from LA, who I was able to get on the phone with immediately, and, you know, get consultations on things, and to know what it was. As a contrast, a friend of mine who had it was so confused by it that he thought the answer was to go running. He would run 5 miles a day every day after getting no sleep. And he did that for weeks, and that drove him deeper. And then he was even more confused. He thought he was dying, goes to the emergency room. Thinking you're dying is also stressful. So he went from what maybe started as what I would call like a level 4 out of 10 crash, and drove it down to probably an 8. And it's because he had no idea. And then by the time he saw a progressive medicine doctor, that doctor was like, I'm just going to let you know it's going to take years, which is a hard thing to have to hear. For me, being able to know what it was, and to go, okay, I'm going to get through this. Or in the moments that I didn't feel like I could know that, knowing I could go to people. And again, I have all your videos memorized. Like, I know which one I'm looking for when I need reassurance. And being able to text and message with you. And I want to throw this out there, that if you want to put my Instagram handle in the description, anybody can message me. The thing is, it's going to drive you nuts to a degree, but when you're able to communicate about it, and you said something huge, which is vulnerability. That is, the more vulnerable I got, the more open I got, the more I showed who I really was, the more I could accept myself, the easier it was to take care of myself, and the harder it became to sabotage myself. And as a result, the recovery went like this. I mean, maybe I'm speaking too soon, but I feel like I'm in your phase 4, which is, like I've told you, I'm doing these little mini workouts. They're very, very gentle, but I'm enjoying them.
Mm-hmm.
And I go on tiny little runs and a long walk every day. And I'm not doing like 1,000 things. I'm doing, 15 reps, like 45 reps total by the end of the entire workout.
Yeah, you're learning that moderation can be super powerful. It's just how because before, again, I was guilty of this too. I mean, the whole change and shift for me was to not be so extreme, because I don't know if my audience can tell or you can tell, but I am a super extreme person, like by nature. Right. I had to train myself because of this, to be like more balanced. Now, that doesn't mean that I've let go of my eccentricities, but I manage them much better than I did before. Because I think my extremes are what makes me unique. But there's definitely a balance, and it sounds like your journey could be however fast, or it's different for everyone, and it's totally, what it is. That's what I've said in my videos. It's like you just know, like, you won't need somebody to confirm it for you when you were truly getting better. And I think it just sounds like, from my perception, is that you're figuring out that, like, oh, it is powerful to just do like enough but not too much, and not to overpraise it or like underpraise it. You just kind of like, it's like,
very even keel. Feel like this is a good sign. Good thing for me is that when I started going on walks, I was going with my wife, who was a very moderate person. So she was keeping track of me, but also she was distracting me. We have a nice conversation. So, because honestly, the first couple of walks, I had some anxiety about it, because I was still struggling with a lot of hypochondria at the time. That's another interesting thing is, knock on wood, my hypochondria is at a lifetime low right now. I think that's because of all the work I've been doing again, and this kind of forced that. Nothing is perfect. There will always be, the big thing is recovery is not linear. It's definitely that you kept reminding me that so much. It's so true. Recovery from this physically, but also anything that you're dealing with and struggling with mentally, it's going to be this non-linear, but in the end, it's a 45-degree angle up. You can't rush it, and you have to take time. Going on these walks with my wife, and she would talk to me, she would distract me, make me think of happy things. She would get, we would get about not even a block away, and she'd be like, it's time to turn around and go back. And I would look at her and I'd be slightly out of breath. I'm like, you're right, And now I can play with my son. 2.5-year-olds are not the slowest guys in the world, not the fastest guys in the world either, thanks be to God. If he was any faster, I'd be like, dude, you're on your own, so I'm not going to push it. But I remember back to one point, and you have to be willing to try things a little bit. Like, don't go manic and go, I'm fine, or I'm so sick of this, I got to go do a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to show myself I'm fine. But there's a little trial and error. I started swimming a little bit a while back, very, very, very slowly in a small pool, like in a circle, like doggy paddling. And I remember one day I did 10 of these circles, and my son then wanted to play a little bit, and I was playing with him, and then all of a sudden I got super out of breath. I got out of the pool, I go and I lay down thinking 5 or 10 minutes will go away. 2.5 hours, I was still kind of doing that. And I went, okay, what does that tell me? Take a couple days off at least. You might have a setback coming, which I did. And when that happened, take more days off. And just start to learn to trust your judgment and really use your judgment versus your own. Don't use your insecurities and your, like, I use the word mania because there's that almost desire to go, if I just trump it up, sorry to use a politically charged word there in a sense, but if I just trump it up or I bootstrap it, I'll just get over it. Nothing could be farther from the truth. And the whole thing is like a Chinese finger trap. And the harder you're pulling, the more entrapped you are. You have to have this kind of finesse to get out of it. And again, I'm telling you, if I did not have the knowledge, if I did not have your channel, if I did not have my friend, if I did not have my wife, if I did not have those things, I wouldn't be able to talk right now. Because in the beginning, you can't even talk.
Yeah.
You're just so dead. So I'm super grateful for it. But and by no means would I want anybody to compare their recovery to mine or whatever. I mean, you know, this is all about us just trying to figure it out. But I just can't stress enough that the more balanced I could get. And at one point I started to get a little extreme on diet, and you came in and talked some sense into me. And that was a close call. I'm telling you, if I'd gone down that road a little further, I think it would have been a big setback.
Yeah, that's what I felt. I mean, of course, I always tell people, like, you know, you do what feels right to you, like I said to you, but because it was, I think it was, you were still in that phase where you were not recognizing your patterns as well as you are now. So you were like about to, but yeah, it worked out. Like,
yeah, and I don't say like you're not a doctor, you're not a therapist, but it was just what you said to me was, you know, your experience with and what it was keto, right?
Yeah.
And we're not advocating keto here, whatever your doctor says or whatever.
Yeah.
But I had misinterpreted what my nutritionist had said. I'd interpreted it as keto. And when you got me to kind of think it through some more, I went, wait, she never used the word keto. And then I actually was like, what did she say? And I kind of wrote it out in my head, and I went, oh, I can see why I thought it was keto, because that's that little manic, I want to do something to change. Because remember, this 220 pounds has been sitting on my body for months and not moving, not budging. And as of today, I've lost like 5 pounds, which is great. So it's just
you look different even since the last time we had a video. Yeah, because
appreciate that. It's definitely, it's starting to come off, and you know, I noticed I weighed myself today and I lost another pound. And just to throw this out there, the first thing I thought, and this was so weird because it's so not like the old me, I went, I don't want to lose weight too fast. The first thought that went through my head is I was a pound lighter than I was yesterday. And I'm like, you know, not that I'm sitting there obsessing over the scale, kind of the opposite. Just, hey, okay, don't take this and get so excited. Just keep eating healthy, keep doing the things you're doing. And as my dad always says, one foot in front of the other. I mean, you just have to do cell by cell, moment by moment. Be with every emotion that you're having. Ride the waves of them. Know how to bring joy into your life. Watch all the dumb Adam Sandler movies you want to watch. You know, but like you said, nothing like
too stimulating, right? Yeah, because it
and on that subject too, one thing for me is like dropping politics out of my life. I won't talk about it. I don't watch it. I don't pay attention to it. You know, because it's so toxic and chaotic right now. I don't sit on Instagram for a long time anymore, because also social media is very stimulating, but it also has a lot of negativity. Also, it makes you jealous when you see a bunch of people that are doing fine. And you're like, I can't move. So I started putting those things down a little bit. And also, I just curated what I had on my Instagram. I started removing the things that didn't help me and putting the things that were more positive in there. So like when I do see my news feed, it makes me smile. I see my friends' babies. I see Catholic things that I appreciate. And I follow you, and I follow, you know, people that are edifying. And for me, kind of cutting down those, and I started doing that from the beginning too. And that was, I feel like I got that idea kind of from you. It was just like, don't stimulate yourself, don't do this stuff. And so I started just trimming it down.
You're about 6 months, right? Ish.
No, this is the crazy thing. I'm only about 3 months.
3 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have to be cautious because, you know, again, I feel pretty good right now, but I also know that it's still a small amount of time. So how much healing I've actually done.
Yeah. Well, you'll find that out as you go forward, you know, but
right.
Like, yeah, I mean, but I think you're doing the perfect balance from what you're saying, is that you're going forward, but you're not going to let yourself get too extreme like we talk about. I think that's like the main takeaway with your success in recovering, is that you learn to, like, very quickly not spend too much time in the extremes.
That's right.
And that's allowing you to progress, which I've said it like 7,000 times in the video. I mean, it's like one of the key things is it's not too much, not too little. It's obviously something that most of us who are suffering from this has a problem with, because the too much, too little is what we're used to. And that's why you have this. So to heal this, you've just got to not do too much and not do too little, which feels very, very awkward. It's like you almost like don't know how to be because you've been the other way for so long. Yeah, that's what I take away from hearing, you know, all your stuff in detail. I know you mentioned it to me before, but with this interview today, you're very detailed, and it's like that's like a huge thing for you. It's that you were learning how to be, you know, balance and in moderation, and that's helping you a lot. Yeah.
And it's ping pong because you'll think you're being balanced, right? What you're doing is you're doing too little now of something, and you kind of have to, and you've got to be as forgiving with yourself as possible. If you have a setback, do not beat yourself up over it. Number one, they can happen on their own. So it's not necessarily your fault. Number two, if you think there's something you did that contributed, it's a lesson. It is not, just remember that you weren't equipped. Obviously, if you got into this, you weren't equipped in the realm of balance anyway. So get equipped, take this time. And one thing I want to mention too, this is like a symptom that I don't know if it's particular to me. I think I asked you about it. Usually the day after my setback would wind down, I would get a headache. And I actually saw it as a good sign that the setback was over. I just want to throw that out there. I don't know if anybody else experiences that. My own theory, I was pre-med in college. I don't know if that qualifies me for anything, but you know, because your blood vessels are dilating and sending the blood out, what happens when the adrenaline comes down is they constrict. And constricting blood vessels in your head, in your brain, it gives you like a hangover type feeling. And so I called it the setback hangover. And it was always a sign to me that it was a sign to me that the sleep was going to come back that night, and that my body was definitely done. So looking for those things too, like learning to understand the signs and signals of your body, and everybody's is a little different. But one of the cool things about this is there's a lot of overlap for those of us that have dealt with this. We have a lot of stuff in common, and personally, as well as in the disease progress. And don't let anybody tell you that this thing isn't real. Don't let anybody tell you that, because I think the big misconception is people think adrenal fatigue, and then doctors go, well, your adrenals aren't fatigued. Yeah, it's kind of a misnomer. You always tend to call it HPA axis dysfunction, which is
I try to keep the name that, like, I always have to name off so many things because it's like all co-related, you know. Like,
and you always like you put them all out, and it's really good because adrenal fatigue sounds like your adrenals are fatigued. Actually, if you think about it, your adrenals are doing what they're supposed to be doing, given the input that you're giving them, which is that I'm in trouble, right? And I've been in trouble for a very long time. And so your adrenals go, you know what, fine. So they're actually, unlike with Addison's disease, where your adrenal glands aren't working, they're working. They're just in overdrive or in underdrive, right? The whole system has done this to try to protect you. You have something like this, you start to think about how your behavior influences and I'm a father, you know, I keep saying that, but it's the most important thing to me in the world. I want to live to see my kids get married. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I want to live to see my grandkids. I don't want to have a heart attack. I don't want to have disease and stuff like that. And I don't want to, and it's, you know, I think that doing anything extreme really is what kind of causes them. And so this thing, again, it's ping pong, and it forces you into this kind of little center that you have to find. And it's like, it's so interesting too, because the type of person that I am, when something wouldn't go exactly the way I wanted to, then I would start heaping a bunch of pressure on myself. Mm-hmm. And again, that's not going to help. So when you alleviate those mental pressures and stuff like that, it helps. And again, like there's, you know, when you start to get better, you start to go, what can I do to help? And there's a part of me is like, should I start a channel? And I told you this, I'll never start a YouTube channel over this subject, because I want everybody to go to this channel. I want everybody going to this one spot. And because the stuff you've put up is so spot on, I just want to say, if you're finding this channel, if this happens to be the video that you found this channel on, please go see all the other videos, like all of them, because they really do stop you from spinning.
Thanks for saying that. I really appreciate it. Just for my audience, I know they ask quite often about the trembling symptom, which is like one of the scariest things for people. And just your experience on that. Did you have it? What was your experience with it?
Trembling for me got worse as I got better.
Okay.
Interestingly enough. And that's one of those things where you have to realize, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I probably had it a lot more in the beginning than I realized. I was so distraught by the adrenaline rushes. I did notice my handshake. Like I could see that. But that little kind of internal trembling that you can't quite see, that I think is a little more freaky deaky for people. Like I can't see it, but it's there. I know it's there. I mean, up until last week, I had a ton of it, honestly. It was just like, I'd be laying on the couch and I realized that my calves were shaking in a sense. Like my calves and I think you mentioned that you get it a lot in your shoulders and your back. For me, it's like my waist down. My upper body doesn't get it. But my legs get it like crazy. And for some reason that one, I'll say that one didn't freak me out so much, but it's because I've heard about it so much. Mm-hmm. Again, hearing about it and knowing it's normal, you just kind of go, oh, and you just feel like it's adrenaline wear off. I'm making that up. It seems like it's either adrenaline wear off or kind of that, like that Australian gentleman that you had on here. It's like just the nervous energy trying to find its release in some way.
Yeah.
And embrace it, because in that sense, because it's like, okay, get out of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a good point I want to make with that. It's like, you know, the symptoms don't always mirror where you're at in your recovery. So sometimes you could be getting better, but you just happen to have like a slew of symptoms come up. You kind of have to detach yourself from thinking, oh, I'm feeling fine, but oh no, why do I have all this? Like, you know, that's kind of the wrong path to go down. You kind of have to just know overall that you're recovering, and okay, so today I have another shaking thing, or today I have another headache thing, and you know, you just ride it.
Ride the wave.
Yeah, and again, I don't mean for you to never go see the doctor and get your, you know, first rule out, and you know, in fact, I encourage that. But at some point, you're gonna have to be more powerful than your obsession over a symptoms that's gonna inevitably happen on this. Like, this is just part of the journey. I just wanted to emphasize, because a lot of people get stuck and they get fearful because they're making progress, and then as soon as they see like a reoccurring symptoms, even though they're feeling overall better, they like mentally set themselves back. So I just think that's good to point out that you're getting better, even though you, like you said, you're getting way better. And in fact, last week you just had more trembling than usual, and you're still getting better.
The most trembling I've ever had was last week.
Yeah, and
I was like, don't even think about it. Just let it go. And
and this week you're not having that much trembling. See, it's like
I'm having no trembling this week.
Yeah, so
next week I could come back.
And that on its own, it's such a reassurance, because if it was something really serious, you would have progressive trembling. Like, you wouldn't just have it in a day and then go away. You know, if something like, let's say, scary like MS or Parkinson's or ALS, right. I mean, that's like a progressive, you know, something's not right. Like, there's no like up and down, you know. So
that's another thing I want to say about all this too. I'm glad you just said that. You would know. Go see a doctor. Go get medical advice. But you will really know when you're sick. I think one of the things I had to teach myself during this was, with regard to the health anxiety, is, bro, if you really were sick, if you really had MS or this, or, you know, whatever thing comes in your brain, like, I don't know how many times I've died of a ruptured appendix in my own mind, you know, like, you would really know. Mm-hmm. And trust that judgment, and then just try to let it go. And again, not saying if you have serious symptoms, don't go to the doctor, but that's just a huge thing for me is, and honestly, like, my health anxiety was problematic for my wife. Like, she got to a point, like, before the crash, when it was getting really bad, that she was like, bro, like, you got to stop asking me if you're okay. And, and it's like something I don't want my kids to see. Not because I don't want them to see me as I am, but I'm saying I don't want them to think that, you should be afraid all the time of your own body. The body is a magnificent thing. It's very rarely not working. Even in this situation, it's actually doing what you've told it to do.
Yeah.
And one of the first people I talked to during this is a friend of mine that actually has a brain tumor, and it's near his pituitary. So, and it's not deadly, but it's something that he's had to have removed multiple times, and it's just this up and down things like the last 20 years. And when I told him what was going on, he goes, I want you to keep in mind, my body wouldn't do what your body's doing right now because my body is actually broken. I said, your body's not broken. You need to know that you're, in a sense, healthy. Your lifestyle is not healthy. So, get those two things together. And I'm just telling you, I mean, this is gonna sound crazy. I'm so happy this happened.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it doesn't sound crazy to me, but I understand.
Yeah. It might sound crazy to somebody that's like bedridden right now, but if you allow it to change you, you allow it to help you access your higher power, to get right with those things. And it's still a journey. I still got a lot of things to fix. I'm not like on Oprah and I'm better now.
Yeah.
I have my trials and my tribulations, but just the personal progress I've seen because of this thing, it's been my greatest teacher. Balance and no extremes. And do not beat yourself up.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Wayo. I really appreciate you sharing your story. And again, I will include his contact information down in the comments section. Instagram
handle's the best way to get a hold of me. Like DM me there. As the kids say, slide into the DMs. I'm getting old. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And don't be shy. Just hit me up in there. The number one thing that I felt as any improvement has happened is, gosh, I want to be that light in the dark for somebody else, because it is a dark space you can get into when you're in this, and you need the light. So,
if you have more questions or anything regarding this video, please post them down in my comment section. I will definitely keep in touch with Wayo, and I'm sure he'll come back on my channel and share more of his progress later if he feels like it.
And again, thank you so much for always being there, and you're helping a lot of people with this, and so I'm just glad to do my little part.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys, I really hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, give me a thumbs up and share my videos with others. That would really help me expand my audience. If you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button as well as the bell icon so you'll be notified whenever I upload new content. I now have PayPal Donate, so if you're interested in that and you want to support my channel, you can click on the link in my comment section as well as the upper right hand corner of my channel homepage. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. As always, remember, it's never too late to optimize yourself, and you can always start right now. Until next time, I'm Jaden Christopher, and I'm wishing you a thriving day. Bye.